All right, we are live. I'm going to wait a few seconds while YouTube and StreamYard talk to each other, come to some sort of agreement. There we go. Outstanding. There we go. All right, they're all talking to each other. Hello, welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm your host, Ed Raby, former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. And, welcome to everyone. I think I'm going to get a roll call here going. I know Fred was usually here first. Rimmer is here. Good to see you, Rimmer. Cranky Elder God is always happy to have a Cranky Elder God in the room. Martin's here. Godless Granny's here. Welcome. Henry has arrived. Mighty Filbert is here. All right. This is Rapid Fire. This is my more open live stream where you can ask whatever questions that you like to ask. So anybody who wants to ask me a burning question, the title for this stream came from a chat person, which once they said you should call it Rapid Fire and just answer people's burning questions. And so that's what I do here on Tuesdays, is I answer questions. All right, and let's see, what's the nature of the Great Schism that separated the Catholicism and Eastern Orthodox Christianity? Now, off the top of my head, I do believe that this was like silly stuff, as I recall. Here, hold on. What drove the schism? And Eastern Orthodox. If I recall, though, it's like it was an East-West thing, and it had a lot to do with history and tradition. Let's see, there were linguistic differences. There were traditional differences, like when they celebrated Easter and Christmas. I think there was a lot of silliness like that. It wasn't really doctrinal as much. So, yeah, I mean, it kind of is, though, Fred, because the way when I remember reading it in history class in Bible college, it was like, because we studied the history of Christianity in Bible college, and I remember reading about the various East-West schisms, and there have been more than one, but so they were. A lot of it was tradition, but yeah, I'm sure there was like some doctrinal things about communion and things like that. Yeah, they did favor Neoplatonic stuff, but at the same time, the Catholics, I don't think gave a damn. Okay, I think really what it came down to is like they wanted, the Eastern Orthodox people, I think, still celebrate Easter the same weekend every year. Like they're not into that. So, and so there was a lot of little shit like that. They have a patriarch, the Catholic Church has a pope, which right now they don't have a pope. I always love these times when they really have no leadership because they don't do anything, and it makes me feel safer. No burning questions. That's okay, Godless Granny. That's fine. It's hard to develop a burning question. You have to do a question and you have to set it on fire. So You feel like using your big words today, Cranky? That's good. There was a lot of personal differences, I think, between people. You had in the Eastern Orthodox Church, people that wanted the headship, and then you had the Catholic Church claiming they were the head of the church, and so on and so on for that. So that's been kind of the case for a lot of schisms in the church. Is this little shit? I mean, um, if you look at like here in the United States, a lot of the schisms were doctrinal, like they didn't agree on XYZ. I'm sure the Baptists could give you a history of schisms in the Baptist church. There are so many independent Baptist churches that it's ridiculous, particularly in the South. But schisms in the church and division in the church is kind of part and parcel for it, because the church relies a lot on, do we put tradition above the Bible? And if we do put the Bible first, what interpretation of the Bible we're going to have? And, there's tons of denominations simply for the fact that people don't agree on interpretation of scripture. Uh, so it's basically whether Jesus' divinity rubbed off on the emperor or pope or not. Yeah, probably. The patriarch of the Eastern Orthodox Church has a lot of power, but he doesn't have as much power as the Pope does. So there's definitely some more balance there, at least from my perspective. So, yeah, I mean, I think the real challenge with religious people is they don't seem to realize that it's really about power. People accept Christianity or being saved or whatever because they feel powerless about something, and they think a religion is going to help them do that. And what it really does, a lot of times, it just provides a framework for what they were going to do anyway. So, but yeah, the more I studied church history, the more I realized, like, when you look at like Martin Luther and the Reformation, it really is the fact that he is kind of disgruntled by the power of the church and doesn't feel like he could gain anything in the Catholic Church. And so he does a few popular things like, let's let priests get married, let's stop the celibacy thing. And so a bunch of horny nuns and monks say, yeah, let's do that. So, but yeah, I mean, and when you look at Martin Luther, it's like, well, yeah, I want to go to the pub and drink beer, on Friday. So I've actually watched that twice. I mostly, like one of the real fun parts is that Rickman's in that, like the guy who played Snape. He's in that movie, and it's like the early days of his career, and I'm like laughing because I'm just thinking about what his career is going to be. He's going to do the Die Hard thing and Harry Potter stuff, and like there he is in Dogma. There's talk of a Dogma too, so I don't know if they're actually going to be, but there was no reverence for the Catholic Church in in that. So David Letterman for Pope, I don't know, might be getting too old. Of course, they kind of like older popes. So yeah, there was also the political landscape, I think, Cranky, because I agree with you there. The Germans were really having a trouble with the papacy, and so basically creating their own version of Christianity was a good way to get past all that. It's the same as the Anglican Church. Henry VIII wanted the ability to divorce his wives, and as long as the church was making the decision whether you're going to get a divorce or not, well, let's just take that power for myself and we'll be all set. So, it's like, yeah, he's the terrorist. Yeah, he does the terrorist thing and knock him out of town and Die Hard, and then he's Snape, and he also did a role in Dogma. So, and it's a hilarious one too. So, oh yeah, but it was just, yeah, Alan Rickman was definitely in that. It's the whole Dogma movie is just hilarious. The fact that God's a woman is also pretty cool too. Doesn't talk, non-talking role. Yeah, it's Buddy Jesus is in that. George Carlin is in that too, playing a priest. That's probably one of the most hilarious moments in George Carlin's career is him playing a priest. So yeah, it's there's a whole bunch of satire going on in the movie Dogma, and it's kicking the Catholic Church right in the nuts. So, um, but yeah, I remember seeing George Carlin in that and just laughing my ass off because he's like, he's totally like a cool priest because he doesn't believe in anything his church does. Pretty much, it's just funny. Yeah, yeah, it's a political thing. Like, he wanted to get divorced from his Spanish wife. The Spaniards were tight with the papacy. The papacy wouldn't let him. So he says, well, fine, screw it. I'll create my own religion. We'll take over all of the church property in England and call it the Anglican Church, and away we go. And then we have another war. Technically, they're vol cells. They're supposed to be voluntarily celibate. I am fairly certain that the vows of celibacy are for 90% of Catholic priests, nuns, and all that stuff are purely for show. Um, I'm sorry. When you consider how many monasteries are within walking distance of nunneries, yeah. Okay. I think it's crap. But I thought it made sense for her to be God. I thought that was pretty cool. And she did a good job. um, there was some of that, like if a member of a royal family or like a merchant family became an embarrassment, taking holy orders was a good way to get out of the problem, which created some awkwardness at times. But yeah, it was legit a way for it's kind of like Christian rehab today. It's a good way to get rid of a problem, so it's not embarrassing. Um, well, there's an old movie called Saved where the one character who's gay makes that observation. That's not for me, that's for them. Okay, it's to get me out of sight and out of mind so that people don't have to think about what I am. Okay, and it's a great line because it's so true. Like when I think of things like Teen Challenge and other um, rehab facilities for these things, it really is about getting rid of problem sinners in the church so that they're out of sight and out of mind. And that's an old Christian tradition going way back in the Catholic Church. So, uh, Katie, your guess is as good as mine, but I think quite a bit. It's interesting that when you look at the arrangement of some of these, you have a nunnery, you have a monastery, and you have an orphanage. And you have to wonder, okay, where did the orphans come from? Um, and yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of orphans in the world, but it's like some of them were probably the products of monk nun relationships that were improper, and they covered it up by just making them into orphans. Yeah, that there was also a political aspect to that. Like you could get land and title outside the family, and because the church had power, that was a way to have one of your sons or even have this political office within the church. And so you could definitely push that angle. Okay, like you could get more power. There was a reason why, like, you look at like Venice, right before the Renaissance or during the Renaissance, you had all these families trying to get their sons into positions of being cardinals. Okay, we talk about the whole conclave thing right now. It's like there was a time when it was all about the political power of having a cardinal, okay, and deciding who the Pope was. Nuns and stable boys, that's possible. No. Well, that, yeah. I mean, I was perusing through Steam the other day looking for games, something cheap, indie, because that's kind of what I'm into. And there's an indie game about running a monastery, and the way you're financing it is beer. So, so, oh, I honestly, that's a very interesting question, Alibria. I wonder if some people trace their ancestry and discovered people in holy orders. I would not be surprised, though. I wouldn't have a surprise face at all for that. When you create a doctrine that basically denies a very normal part of humanity, I mean, the whole sexual sin thing just drives me nuts. Anyway, um, I don't know. Some of you, like on my personal account, I still have ads on, and I'll plug in an ad, and because I do a lot of searches on religion and all that stuff, it's always this Christian reform group for Pornhub or whatever. I'm like, what the hell? It's like it's trying to deny basic human nature, and in a lot of respects, we procreate. Okay, it's like, and when you create religious doctrines like that, you're going to cause problems because people just can't do it. Okay, it's not a thing that they can do. Um, so yeah, they also grew cucumbers. uh, yeah, John, I do think so. I think a lot of religions have a problem with sex. I don't know why either. Like you know, it's it boggles my mind. For instance, like I was talking games earlier, but like video games, you can get like just a mature rating for like beheadings and blowing people to smithereens and everything else. But if you have a sex scene in a video game or a movie or anything like that, and it's like, to me, that's far less offensive than destroying a human being. But yeah, I don't agree with you. That's an assertion. But yeah, but if you can control people's sex lives, you can definitely control them a lot easier. Um, I would agree with you, Katie. Like if any nuns submitted their DNA to 23, yeah, I think you would find it. The Bible's just a book, and that's its opinion. I preached that shit, Kenneth G. I was a pastor for 20 years. I know exactly where you're going with this, and quite frankly, it's despicable. I mean, you're trying to control people's sex lives, and that's not your business. I know your God's the biggest voyeur there is, but yeah, the Bible is not historical. There's absolutely no evidence for the first 6 books of the Bible anyway being history. It's a complete lack of evidence for anything. So sorry, that's nothing. Well, how about this? How about that Luke completely got it wrong that Quirinius was not governor of Syria at that time? There has never been a census like that in Roman history. The fact of the matter is the Bible gets history wrong so many times. It's just ridiculous. And there's my evidence. Okay. Sorry. I am not lying. This is scholarship, dude. You're the one that's lying to yourself. Okay. Sorry. There was a whole bunch of scholars, Hebrew scholars. Uh, it is absolutely what the academics say. Okay, your academics are guys that have to have their little thingy where if they deny their faith, they lose their job. The academics that don't have that problem, sorry, no. You have a whole bunch of Israelite scholars, that have been in the desert for hundreds of years who have come to the conclusion that the story of the Exodus is pure grade A fiction because there. Yes, and I have my own disagreements with Bart. I have a master's degree in theology, so I mean, I'm not trying to be rude, but no, there is no evidence for the Exodus. There's no evidence for the first 5 books of the Bible. There's no evidence for Joshua. If you're looking at true archaeology and scholarly sources, there's none of that. There is no evidence for a census that the Romans ever did, like what's in the Bible. It just does not exist. Josephus simply mentions that Christians exist. He doesn't, and a lot of what he does has been edited, and we all know it's edited, and even Christian scholars admit that Josephus's work was edited by a Christian. And the rest of them mention Christianity. So what? They don't talk about all the rest of the history of the Gospels. The Gospels are anonymously written with anonymous sources, which makes them hearsay. So, sorry. No, all that tells us is that there were people from the Levant in Egypt. So what? The kind of amount the Bible is claiming is 2 million people inhabited the land of Goshen at the end at 400 years, and there's no evidence of that whatsoever. Sorry. I have my degree. You want to look at my degrees? Okay. All right. Trinity Bible College, class of 1993. Asbury Theological Seminary, class of 1996. Ferris State University, if you want my political science degree, class of fall 2019. Okay, you can look them up. So, actually, that's debated. Sorry. Even McDowell now says that Christians should stop saying this about the apostles because 8 of them basically disappear from history. Sorry. So you're saying, so you're just going to insult me. You don't have any evidence, and I'm giving you evidence in return. And so you're just going to insult me. So you've devolved to an ad hominem attack. So thank you for telling me that I won the argument. You haven't presented any evidence for this. You say the record of the Bible is true. That's a claim. Where's your evidence that backs up that claim? You don't have any. Okay. And that's your problem. You can keep saying it all you want, but that's a claim. Where's your evidence? There is, sorry, no. Academia does not support the idea of the Bible being history. Sorry, it does not do that. I don't know who told you that or where you got that, but that is just not true. Okay. Sorry. No, they don't. I can literally give you sorry. No, they don't. Sorry. You're wrong. Okay. You want to believe that because it fits your confirmation bias, but no. There's at least 100 historians that even question whether Jesus existed. Okay. And they're full academic PhD historians. Okay. I'm sorry. In academia, the Bible is not considered history. It's considered mythology mixed with legend. Okay. What letter? Which one? What letter in the Smithsonian are you talking about? You can sit there and go around in circles like that all you want, but you haven't given me any evidence. You've just asserted there's evidence exists, but where is it? Sorry, no. Sure, there's no 100% consensus because the biblical scholars can't say anything against their faith, and so they're being strong-armed to say what people want them to hear. Sorry. How old is it? I mean, even if such a letter exists, is it being included in the Smithsonian because it's a statement of fact, or is it being included in the Smithsonian because it's historical, what somebody believed in the past? Okay, I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to be here to be in, but there is no scholarly evidence for the Bible being history. Okay, there is no record of anything in Egypt that indicates that 2 million people lived in the land of Goshen for 400 years. There is no evidence for that whatsoever. It's like embarrassingly nothing. So, who? Give me names. Response letter from whom? Give me names. I've never heard of such a letter. And even if I did, I'm sure it's disputed. Who? Who wrote the letter? Yeah, I don't care if the Smithsonian can be wrong. I don't care. Yeah, put the link in the description. I don't care. Okay, because I'm probably going to look at it and laugh. Sorry, I mean I have a biblical studies degree and I study this stuff looking for answers. No, I it's not that I'm going to laugh. You still haven't given me the link. What are you afraid of? See, I do this every time. Go ahead, give me the link to this supposed letter that says that it's the most historically accurate thing ever. Okay, so now you're avoiding giving the link. What are you afraid of? Give me the link. By the way, while we're waiting, thank you, big boy. I appreciate the gift. I think I've already done that. As far as debunking Aristotle, unmoved mover, it's an assert. The biggest problem with that one I always had is it's begging the question. What do you mean by unmoved mover? You're already assuming God's existence at that point. All right. No, I'm not going to do that. I'll tell you what. Apparently, I can. I mean, I'm getting. No, I'm not getting anything other than letters about the flood, which the flood has been debunked many, many times. It could not have happened. There's just nothing here. The Smithsonian letters about the Bible are usually personal letters that I see given with all kinds of different opinions. So it's in my channel. But yeah, go ahead, send it there. But I mean, I'm looking it up right now. Smithsonian letter. There's a lot of Christian sources that want to tout this, but that's There's a Smithsonian letter about the Bible being history. There's a statement about the Smithsonian never using the Book of Mormon as a scientific guide. And I'm not sure that this has even been authenticated as to be. I would have to see the Smithsonian actually authenticating. Here, let me add a word here to my search. Okay, going to Smithsonian Magazine site. Yeah, see those? They debunked a myth that they went to do to Noah's Ark. They never did that. Discovered Egyptian ruins in the Grand Canyon. Castles haunted. Yeah. See, the problem is I'm looking at this letter and there's no authenticity attached to it. Like it's just a PDF and there's no connection to any kind of thing with the Smithsonian. Like there's no link. Okay, so no, it's not true. Sorry. I mean, I'm sorry. I've studied the other scholarship. There's way too much stuff. But yeah, but as far as the Smithsonian letter, so what? Okay, there's a body of scholarship outside the Smithsonian that says bullshit. So I know it picks it up, and I've now read it, parts of it, and I'm going to tell you this: it's sus to me because there's no link to the actual Smithsonian. Anybody can put a letterhead on a letter that says Smithsonian, so there's no authenticity here. I mean, I know y'all want to believe it, but I don't think it's true. Yeah, there's nothing there, Rimmer. It's like I'm reading this letter, and it's like it could be by anybody to anyone. It's not connected to the Smithsonian Institute itself. It just bears their letterhead. So, yes, I do have an email, Rabyd Atheist. It's right there. People tell stories, but I'm looking. The Smithsonian letter itself. It looks like it's a letter to the Smithsonian Institute, but somebody put the Smithsonian Institute's letterhead on it, so it's sus. Okay, I wouldn't consider it a good source of information. It's bad evidence. Give me a link to the Smithsonian Institute's website where it says that the Bible is history. Give me that. Sounds like somebody made something up. Just because somebody puts a letterhead on a letter doesn't make it so. Do you have authenticity? Has the Smithsonian said that this letter is authentic? That's not there. Okay. I mean, yeah, the Smithsonian asserts correctly that the Bible does contain historical names. They're not asserting that the Bible is 100% fact. Correct. Even that letter kind of is very suspect about that. Okay, well then why, if they're not a publisher of letters, then why are we even referencing this letter? You're kind of making your own case against you. Okay, if the Smithsonian is going to say that this letter is authentic, then they would say so on their website that this is authentic. but they're not doing that. And anybody can put say the word Smithsonian in a letterhead and make it up. It's literally a scanned letter that could have come from anywhere. It's bad sourcing. As somebody with a research degree, which I do have, that I got from a Christian school, I would say that that's shit, even as a Christian. Okay, it's horrible evidence. Okay. Yeah, it is how the world works, dude. I mean, we authenticate things all the time. Okay, double, triple, whatever. Hey, Ashera. But no, that's horrible evidence, because I can't see anything where this says this came from the Smithsonian. It's just on their letterhead, and anybody can write that on their letterhead. So, yes, I'm taught to think about evidential in a Christian school. Okay, we had to back up our opinions and theories with, actual biblical scholarship when I was still into that sort of thing. Okay, and we had understandings of that. So there, I you do you know that things can be forged, right? They can be made up. Today, I could literally do the same kind of letter with a Smithsonian letterhead in probably half an hour, saying that the Bible is crap and put it online in a PDF. That doesn't prove shit. Okay, it's bad evidence. Okay, you've got to have something that comes from an authenticated source, that it's the Smithsonian, not just a PDF that bears their letterhead. Okay, this would be dismissed in court. Okay, you couldn't prove if you couldn't prove this came from the Smithsonian itself, it would dismiss it. They would dismiss it. Okay, they would throw it away. It's not good evidence. Okay. Yeah, I mean, they have exhibits on Back to the Future. They have exhibits on a lot of things. It doesn't make it true. Okay, it doesn't make it anything. They're not necessarily a source for anything good. It sounds like somebody made up this letter, and and apologists have gone gaga for it. But there's this thing called, you can put anybody's letterhead on there. I mean, I could literally go to the Ark Encounter, steal whatever their letterhead is, and say it came from the Ark Encounter. And after further review, we have decided that the biblical flood is a false story. Okay, would everybody just suddenly believe that because their letterhead was on it? No. Okay, so it's not good evidence. Sorry, dude. There's evaluation of whether something's good evidence. We do this in court all the time. That's not evidence. Okay, evidence has to be authenticated. Okay, you have to have multiple things that say that evidence is valid. Okay, this is the way we do things. It's not, oh, we just see it and the Smithsonian says it, so therefore it's true. Well, is that the Smithsonian? Can you verify that it's the Smithsonian? I mean, no, you can't. I mean, you don't have any verification that that's actually from the Smithsonian other than the letterhead, and anybody can copy the letterhead. I mean, there's more to when we authenticate who owns pieces of property. There's more evidence than that. So, hey, Earl, you haven't missed much. I don't care. I'm fairly certain that I've already seen what letter you're talking about, and unless I can find where the Smithsonian says that this is a valid letter from them, I'm probably not going to buy it. So I believe a lot of history is true. Okay, but the Bible isn't history. Okay, it's myth and legend and a little bit of history. I mean, they get the names of places and people right that existed, but whether or not the events and stuff surrounding their life are legendary or myth, no. There's no evidence, for instance, for Moses even existing. So I, of course, know what a return receipt is, but where's the return receipt on your letter? Okay, you're making my case for me. Thanks. Yes, the Smithsonian also has a fossil record and claim that evolution is true. Do you believe them? I don't know. American? Yes, but so what? Okay, you're still not getting my point. Okay, does the Smithsonian say that this is an authentic letter from them? Where is that? Give me that. Okay, but there's also stuff in the Smithsonian that contradicts the Bible too. Like, they don't buy they definitely clearly support evolution because it's true, and so that undercuts the Bible. So what do you do there? It's like you're picking and choosing what you want from the Smithsonian too. You're picking the evidence that backs your already preconceived opinion. Okay, so I I'm very well aware, like Michael was pointing out here. I also know that there's a lot of things that people think are history that aren't true as well. When you actually dive into them, no, that didn't really happen because there's no evidence that it happened. Okay, so uh, no, because if this is a true letter from the Smithsonian Institution, they've been questioned about it, and they would have somewhere on their website or somewhere in their archives that they would authenticate this letter. That's what you need. Okay, a return receipt doesn't prove shit because I can also make up websites. Okay, I can actually literally, make up the Smithsonian and give it a completely different dot address, and it would still be the Smithsonian, and that doesn't prove a damn thing. It doesn't mean it came from the Smithsonian in Washington D.C. Okay, it doesn't prove anything. Okay, your standard of evidence seems to be a little bit low. Yeah, he's kind of wasting our bit. I agree. Kenny G is notorious for doing this kind of shit, mostly because, and I'm going to tell you this, Kenny G, to your face right now. You buy stuff that you think is evidence because you want it to be true. You and Maverick both have that same problem. Okay, because like me back in the day, you want something to be true so badly because you have an emotional connection to it that you will accept very low bar evidence. And I'm sorry, I don't debate people. I never have, and I never will. It's not my thing. There's plenty of people that would debate these issues with you, but I don't do that. It's not true. Sorry, they're not true. Okay. It's not about a logical connection, dude. It's about authenticity. When we have people that put seals on documents to authenticate the document, okay, has the Smithsonian put their seal on this letter and authenticated it? No, they haven't. Yes, respect her. I don't care about your time, man. It's listen. You come onto my show. This is my show, and you spout nonsense, and I call you on it, and then you get defensive, and then you start being insulting. And yeah, somebody just probably blocked you right now, if I'm reading my chat correctly. So I'm not trying to be, but I think a lot of you apologists are fishing for debates now because nobody respectable will debate you. But if you consider the Smithsonian letter to be evidence, I got some swampland near Florida that I can sell you. And I'll just give you the title. I don't want you to authenticate it. I don't want you to do anything. I'll just send it to you in the mail. Give me an address. Hell, I'll email it to you. But it's going to cost you a couple $1,000s. Would you do that? No. So yeah, thanks, but I don't debate because that's not my thing. Okay, I'm here to discuss things with people, but this wasn't a discussion. This was a lot of assertions, and when I asked for certain pieces of evidence that would authenticate what he said, he backed off. I don't have a lot of respect for that kind of. And Kenny G is kind of notorious in the atheist sphere for doing this kind of shit, saying there's proof of something, and then when you corner him on it, he backs off and leaves. So yeah, if I'm wasting your time, yeah, move along. So that's because Bridge. if you are good at debate, and I think you are, they don't want to debate you because you're gonna bring the goods. And debating some of these guys like pre-suppers is a waste of time anyway. So because they're going to say I can assume what I is true, they don't seem to realize that then I could go into debate as an Odinist and say, well, I'm going to assume everything about Odin, Thor, and Freya is true, and the Yggdrasil tree is the actual universe, and you have to prove me wrong. That the technique literally works for every religion is kind of funny to me, but they don't seem to realize that. So, oh. Uh, I'm not sure she does wear pants. In fact, yeah, not wearing pants, allegedly, yes. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, this is an open forum, asshole, but the discussion wasn't going to go anywhere. I was asking for certain pieces of evidence, and he was not willing to provide them. Okay, it's like, give me the authentication that the Smithsonian says that this is a genuine letter of theirs, because that should exist in academic circles. Authentication like that is standard, like citing your sources, where you got your sources, and links to those sources is so much a part of academia that it should exist. And if it's not there, they can't provide it, then they're believing this Smithsonian letter. And I'm looking through it, and it's like it looks like it's a letter to the Smithsonian by somebody who lists off these sources. And a lot of those sources that are in that letter, I would question and have been questioned, okay, as to their authenticity. So, when you have people that already, it's like I say, when the problem with biblical scholarship is biblical scholars often have to sign these statements of faith that they can't go against. So even if they discover something that contradicts their faith, they can't mention it and they can't talk about it because they could lose their job. Okay, and they don't want to lose their job. Okay, and that's the way the Christian academia twists the arm of its academics to make sure you better say what the Bible says or else. Okay, if it was so damn true, they wouldn't need that. They wouldn't need that. Regular academia doesn't have that because they're looking for the truth, and they don't want to twist anybody's arm about it. Oh, yes. Yeah, Kenneth G does that on Aaron Ra. I've seen him before. He's coming to me because I think I'm one of the few atheist YouTubers that streams on Tuesdays. So I've noticed that because I've looked and there's not a lot of people else on at this time slot. So it's kind of good for me because I'm the only one around and people come and see me and get a pretty good crowd on Tuesdays. So, oh. Oh. This is the thing, Michael. It's kind of like if there was good evidence for God or Christianity, they would have presented it a long time ago. See, what a lot of these apologists don't seem to realize is there's levels of, you can sit there and say this letter, is it evidence? Sure. Is it good evidence? Is it authenticated evidence? No. It's bad evidence and unauthenticated. Okay. It's like it's something that probably some Christian made up. They put a Smithsonian letterhead on it to give it some clout. I mean, this is kind of what a lot of apologists do. They manufacture these authorities. So it's not a far stretch to think that a Christian would make this stuff up to lie about it. Okay. And you don't have, this isn't like, it's not coming from a link to the Smithsonian Institute itself. Okay. The Smithsonian Institute, like, as somebody pointed out, also has stuff that says this is what proves evolution, which I'm sure Kenny G doesn't agree with. So he's picking and choosing what he wants. Yeah, the Smithsonian is this great authority when it agrees with me, but it sucks when it doesn't. Okay, and that's the problem I ran into as a Christian is I kept running into stuff that had better evidential standards on the other side. Okay, like the Bible isn't history. Like when you have a whole bunch of Jewish rabbi scholars that come back from the desert, this is back when Christopher Hitchens was still alive because he was the first one to mention it. They come back from the desert And these are people that want the story to be true, and they say we can find no evidence. In their academic integrity, they said there is no evidence for the Exodus. There is no evidence for Abraham, Isaac, and all that. There's no evidence for Adam and Eve. There's no evidence for Noah's flood. Okay, like there's no evidence for any of this stuff. And, you know, people get acquitted because there's no evidence that says they're guilty. So I'm sorry, it's not history. It's mythology, and they just don't want to accept that. So, okay, well, if he's back, you know, I'll time him out. I mean, this is rapid fire and it's open, but I want some good discussions, not going around in circles. So, and that was going around in circles because he wouldn't, like, this is what would convince me. Give me what would convince me. Yeah, you can make a letter with the Ark Encounter. Go find whatever their logo is at the top of their letterhead, and Rimmer, go do it. It would prove the point. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Fred's still here, but I'm not. Fred doesn't like to claim Ken Ham as an Australian, so, but he is. They couldn't spell pastrami. Okay, there we go. Fangs lore. I don't know if I got any new Fangs lore yet. I tend to do Fangs lore on Saturday because it's a fun way to end the stream. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, in the great world of Fangsology, there's always something going on, I'm sure. But the beauty of this religion is anybody can create lore for it. So. Happy Revenge of the Sixth, yes. Yeah, I think that's what it is, Fred, is they just haven't had to have good evidence. Like this stuff would have convinced people back in the, you know, the 40s or 50s. There's a lot of apologetic tropes that are around from that time period that still hang on. But the idea of putting evidential standards on their evidence is a new thing. Like it's the 70s and 80s were kind of rough for Christianity because people started to apply evidential standards to it. And slowly, you know, it's been, you know, 100 years in coming, but the biblical historical account has taken massive hits as not being historical. And that's just not what they want to do. So. If you're willing to lose your lunch money, okay. I mean, go ahead. I mean, Ridge, you know, go for it. Have fun with him. But yeah, it's just like I don't understand how you would consider that good evidence when there's no authenticity. I would, as a Christian, I would have wanted authenticity on that because I'm not going to come out with a bad source of information and something bad evidential in proof of my faith, because then that just sets me up to be criticized. Okay. And I was very careful about that stuff when I was a Christian and trying to be an apologist. And that's what made it frustrating because apologists don't have very good evidential standards. The Bible is recorded history. No. Yeah, but they keep doing the historical angle because they know that that's what's under assault, and they don't have any good evidence for the Bible being history, so they try to jump you about it. And yes, blessed be Fangs, he nimbled for our sins, nom nom nom, nom nom. Ken who? I kind of figured. Ken who? He's an Australian, really? Oh, I don't know. People can be convicted of a lot of things, Kenny G. It doesn't mean it's the truth. I don't think conviction, how convicted you are about something equals truth. It's called evidence. You got evidence. Oh, Raymond Nam. Okay. Crunch, crunch nom. Yeah, see, I'm still, I found another, I think I found another sacred food. I found some mac and cheese that has a rabbit logo. last night when I was doing a mod. I was doing the macaroni and cheese mod for my Walmart, and Ann's, like Ann's Organic, has a rabbit as a symbol, so that might be new lore. Okay, you're the thing about the lore with fangs is you always got to be looking at the rabbit foreshadowing on products, on holidays, and all that stuff. If there's a rabbit symbol, it's a foreshadowing of fangs. So I don't think he's still here, but I still have his like comments. Okay, and it just struck me like just because I'm convinced something is true doesn't make it true. Okay, so yeah, I don't think he's here. It's just he's been timed out, but it's like his comment still appears in StreamYard. That's the thing about it, guys. You can get rid of the comments in YouTube, but they're still in StreamYard. I can still pull them up. So it doesn't have any of that. So I just don't have that. Yes, Banana Man. Oh, that is so funny. It's still funny to this day. It's almost as good as Low Bar Bill and his comment about lowering epistemological evidence. Almost as good. Yeah, lack of evidence is what's unconvincing. No, we don't. I've never heard that. I think you're making shit up. At that point, I think you're definitely making shit up. So, oh, you untimed him? Okay. I'm way behind on comments, yes, because I try to deep dive a comment, but no, I don't consider the evidential standards that most apologists accept to be very good. So yes, anything rabbit, carrot based too. When it comes to fangology, you can look for carrots too, because that's the only naturally holy vegetable. The rest have to be purged of their religion. Oh boy. Let's see. Well, it wasn't a rabbi that tried Jesus in the first place. If I read the story, well, but that doesn't prove that the story is true. It just proves that Caiaphas exists, and I don't know that that's ever been disputed that the high priest Caiaphas existed. So, I mean, that doesn't prove that the rest of the story is true. I mean, I know Augustus Caesar existed, and I know Quirinius was actually a person, but he wasn't governor of Syria at the time. That whole paragraph is just straight up wrong. And I've known that for a long time. So, but so what? Caiaphas being a historical figure, I don't think has ever been disputed because he is mentioned in other records, unlike Jesus. So, I agree that it's probably plausible that Caiaphas, the high priest, existed. All the rest of the story is still in flux. Just because Augustus existed doesn't mean the rest of the story of Jesus is true. You have to authenticate that story, okay, which there isn't anything. You can't just jump to the conclusion that the whole of the gospel is true because Caiaphas existed any more than you can jump to the whole story of Luke is true because Augustus existed. That's a major leap. Okay. The existence of people and places is also in fictional literature. Like people write historical fiction today that uses real people and places. Doesn't mean the events Doesn't mean all that stuff actually took place. There's a lot of trials recorded in Roman texts. Congratulations, Romans do trials. I have never said that Jesus didn't necessarily not exist. I'm saying that the events surrounding his life are made up. So, yes, but so what? What is the significance of the point of Caiaphas existing? Okay, congratulations, the high priest existed. So what? Um, and somebody knew that and put it in their story about Jesus. That's all you've proven. Okay. And a lot of biblical scholars will, that aren't, Christians, like even, Bart Ehrman's would probably agree with that. But it's like, so what? It doesn't prove the resurrection. It doesn't prove that he was virgin born. It doesn't even prove that he was the son of God. It just proves, okay, the person had a historical character that they used. No, it doesn't prove that Jesus is resurrected. How does that prove that Jesus is resurrected? That's a big leap. No, all you have is proof that Caiaphas, one of the characters in the story, existed historically. That's all you have. I can do that with historical fiction on the shelf of my local bookstore too. Okay, doesn't mean that those events are true. No, cumulative cases are not good unless you actually prove the issue in question. If you're talking about the resurrection, do you have evidential evidence that the resurrection took place? No. So sometimes not. But just because you can prove historical figures, like I said, for a long time they didn't think the city of Troy existed, and that was just mythological, and they found it. Still doesn't prove that Athena and Ares battled on the plains of where or Achilles existed or any of that. It just proves that it happens to be that a city existed. So what? That doesn't prove the actual events. That's a long way from proving the actual events. Okay. I knew this as a Christian when I was an apologist. Like that still doesn't prove shit. Okay. You can, no, it cannot be. Okay. You have to go a lot further than the existence of Caiaphas to the priest to the resurrection. There's a whole bunch of shit in between that you don't have. Okay. You have 2 data points, and it doesn't mean that all the data points line up to your final conclusion. Sorry, it just doesn't. Okay. You're a long way from proving the resurrection. Okay. It's also in the Iliad that Troy existed. Does that make the events of the Iliad true? In the Odyssey, Homer has his character visit all kinds of real historical places. Does that mean they fought a Cyclops? Okay. I'm sorry. Just because you have people in places that are true doesn't mean that the events took place. Okay. Was Abraham Lincoln really a vampire slayer? Okay, because we have a modern book that asserts that he was, a fictional book that says maybe it's not fiction, maybe it's real history. See, you're not getting the fact that if you allow that standard for your proof of evidence for the resurrection, then I can prove that Abraham Lincoln was a vampire slayer. Then I can prove that, that all of Homer's stories were true too. Okay, it's such a low standard of evidence. It allows any mythology to be true at that point, simply because they have historical places or historical names. That's sorry, it's not a cumulative case. It's what everybody does. No, we don't need eyewitnesses to know that Caiaphas was high priest. We have historical documentation of that in multiple sources. Okay, you're failing to understand. This is not the way historians do business. Okay, you don't have eyewitnesses. Who? Because the gospel writers don't identify themselves. That's an assertion from Ignatius of Antioch, which he never bothers to prove, and he's the only one that says so. And none of the stories within the gospel themselves have sources either. It could be pure fiction, and you would never know. Where do they claim that they're eyewitnesses? Luke certainly doesn't. Luke openly admits he's not an eyewitness and that he's just collecting stories. Okay, Mark never claims he's an eyewitness. None of the things that Mark claimed are eyewitnesses. The only one that comes close to it is John. And then it's unclear as to who that is. Give me the verse reference of that, because you're lying. They do not identify themselves. That Matthew and Luke do not identify themselves in their gospels. None of the gospel writers identify themselves. You give me the verse references and I'll take that statement. Yeah, that's it. That's lie number two. No, they do not. There is no verse reference that says John. It does not say it was John. It says it's the disciple who Jesus loved. There is no reference where it says, I, John the Apostle, wrote this gospel. He does not identify. The person who identifies themselves does not identify themselves. Okay, they don't say who they are. The disciple whom Jesus loved, that's an anonymous thing. It does not say. You're assuming that that was John, and there has been no proof that that assumption is true. Where? Verse reference, please. Because you do not have it. Okay? You're avoiding the verse reference thing. It's a simple thing. There's this thing called a Bible search engine. Get me the verse reference and the verse. Aso, can you help him out? Can you find a verse reference where Matthew identifies himself as the writer of Matthew, Luke identifies himself as the writer of Luke, where it literally says Luke and Matthew? Okay, so now you're making shit up. You're literally lying about stuff. There is no verse that says that any of these people wrote these gospels. It is completely anonymous. Yes. Yeah, I'm kind of tapping my foot too, Earl, because I'm waiting for these verse references because it would clear everything up. But I think we've just caught Kenny G in a lie. He knows that they don't exist, and he tried to buffalo me, and he should know better. I have a degree in biblical studies, and I studied the Gospels and taught them at least 7 times in my churches. And one of the biggest problem is I couldn't find any direct evidence that any of the Gospel writers were written by the people that are claimed to have written them. Okay, and there's no evidence. None of the stories have authentication either. So where's your verse references? They have to be, dude. Okay, I got tired of lying. That's why I left. Okay, I left Christianity because of this kind of crap. Okay, where people just made shit up. There is no verse reference where Matthew says, I, Matthew, the tax collector, wrote the Bible. And it's weird that we would think so, because the story of Matthew, the tax collector, being called isn't there. He's a troll. It's not a question of thinking. Okay. I've seen him other places, and that's what he does. But yeah, he writes stuff trying to cause like doubt in what people are saying. But he's like, I just called him on something that should be very easy to do. Pull up the verse reference where it says, I, Matthew, wrote this gospel, or I, Luke, wrote this gospel, or well, but that doesn't say Luke. It just says that whoever the author is, this is what he intended to do. And he's also saying then he's also not an eyewitness, Kenny. He's saying he maybe interviewed eyewitnesses, but he has no proof of that. That's a claim, but names, who, which eyewitnesses? Anybody can write that. I can write that. And as many of us as were witness of Fangs, the bunny, being the demigod of rabyolatry, as much as we have tried to put together the story, I'm endeavoring to do the same. And if I don't name myself, I have just as much authenticity. What names? Which ones? I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for you to give me the verse references where these names are. Yes, because modern standards are stricter, and we have learned our lessons because people are charlatans and frauds. I studied the Bible. I have a degree in the Bible. I've read it 15 times at least, and I used to preach from it, Kenny. I know what's there and what's not. Quit acting like I'm ignorant. You're the one. No, you did not. It doesn't say any names in what Luke says. The only name it says is Theophilus, which is who it's written to. No, the modern standards are better, much, much better. Okay, because the other ones just accepted anything. Sorry. Where does it say Luke is writing? Where? In the gospel itself, where does it say that Luke is writing? Go read it. Where does it say Luke is writing this? It doesn't. As somebody with a biblical studies degree, me, from a Christian school, I'm telling you that my professor said that this is a problem. I can be anybody. It could be me. It could be you. That isn't Luke. It doesn't say I, Luke, wrote this. So what did he use the first person? Okay, now you're just being a troll, dude. You know for a fact that you got nothing here. And so you're just wasting time. Quit wasting my time, or I'm going to time you out. Lose. Good day, sir. Yes. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir. I'm kind of done. Okay. And just for the record, mods, if Kenny G shows up again, just ban him. If you can't do it already. I'm not going to have those kind of discussions here with somebody who just wants to beat around the bush, who could easily prove their points. And I'm literally giving them the softball of what would prove their point, and they don't want to do it. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. It's like, dude, do you just get a kick out of being a troll because it's all you are? I mean, if that's what you want to believe, go ahead and believe it. But, when you do ridiculousness, I got enough to. So, but yeah, I know what this guy's about. I've seen him on other channels, Earl. He's just, he's just a guy that likes to assert a lot of things. And when you ask for evidence, he runs away and tries to do something else and get on some other subject because he knows he doesn't have it. I have been asking for proof literally since I started this channel that Luke wrote Luke, Matthew wrote Matthew, Mark wrote Mark, and John wrote John. And so far, no theist has ever been able to prove it because as a Christian Bible scholar back in the day, I knew that problem existed from the day I took Life of Christ in Bible college. Okay. and so there is nothing there. We have Ignatius of Antioch's statement, but he doesn't tell us where he got that information. So it's an assertion without evidence. So it's like, you got nothing. And I think they're anonymous for a reason because it's just about building faith and it's not about truth. And, I'm just kind of done with that kind of argument. Oh, I'm old enough to understand that joke. Yeah, I mean, I'm here to have fun too. Remember, I am. But I like engaging theists. I try to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I don't seem to get too many. It's been a long time since I've got like a Triple E. Like when Triple E comes on here, he's a genuine. Like I had problems with my faith, and I want to talk about it. Okay. And when I first met him, he had genuine questions and he was interacting with me, and it was a give and take conversation, really, not a bunch of assertions that he couldn't prove. He was just like, and now he's a Tribune for the channel. He's, it's why I leave this stream open for that kind of thing, because there are some genuine people that are looking for like some answers and they don't get answers elsewhere. And I remember, when it was me deconverting, I was so glad to have some atheist friends and atheist people that I went to that explained their position to me without yelling at me for being an idiot for believing in God. And, I was there to learn and hear things. And I think there's a big difference. Okay, he's been yeeted to the void. Okay, very good. I've done that with several, Earl. I don't feel bad about it. I can usually tell a precept early, and this guy, he's given me stuff that can't be authenticated. Leroy Jenkins is 20 this year. Oh, I already feel old. My oldest child just turned 35. So at the end of last month, there's something about you have a kid. Yes. Earl is having the same reaction. No, not Leroy Jenkins. No. But yeah, oh my God. It's not my own age that bothers me half the time. It's the age of people around me and the age of movies and the age of, and when I read the obituary and see another actor, I'm like, how the hell are they dead? They were just like 40 last year. Oh, wait, that was 30 years ago. Yeah, I don't know. Age gets to me, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't bother me. Tom Cruise and Kenny G are just there. Are here to disrupt, though, and it's pretty clear. I have no problem with people having honest discussion. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that either. But if you're going to throw a letter from the Smithsonian that can't be authenticated, and then you want to sit there and say the Bible's Gospels were written by eyewitnesses, and I literally ask you for the verse references where it says Matthew wrote Matthew, Luke wrote Luke, and he was quoting Luke to me. But in that passage, one of the problems is the guy tells you what his method is, which he's interviewing people and putting together stories. Well, that tells me he's not an eyewitness. He's going to other people to get the stories. So he's not an eyewitness of the events. And he doesn't name himself. Okay. He names Theophilus, which is a pretty general term, seeker for God or whatever. And so, yeah, it's just, it's typical of most apologists. They speak with confidence. They manufacture authorities. Rationality Rules is so right about that. I think I left a comment with them and said, this is not true just apologists. This is religion in general. Like, all religion is based on manufactured authority and speaking with confidence. So, yes, I feel like my offspring's birthdays make me feel older than my own. Like my other son turns 34. My daughter is going to be 32. It's like all my kids are in their 30s. What the hell? Weren't they just? Seems like a week ago that they were graduating high school. And a week before that they were playing in the yard. And so I love my offspring. They're great. They're wonderful people. They do wonderful things, and it's just, and now that my offspring also have offspring of their own, I love the grandkids. The grandkids are dope. They're dope as hell. They're more cool than anybody else. Oh, the Offspring band. Oh, gosh, have I listened to them? I think I have. Yeah. I think I have. I just can't remember what their songs are. Yeah, it means lover of God, and I think that's all it ever meant. See, the problem what most people don't realize about the Greek text, the originals, is they're all in capital letters, and they didn't put spaces in between words. And so, literally, this name Theophilus could just be lover of God, and somebody translated it into a name. Okay, because you have to read through the context to get the proper lettering and stuff. They develop small letters and spaces in Greek because of biblical scholarship mostly. So, yeah. Oh, the kids aren't all right. Okay, all right. I know who you're talking about. There we go. Bad Habit, yeah. Okay, I know their music. True. We'll all be in the 30s again in another decade. We'll be all right. When your kids end up being older than you feel you are, not that I know. Yeah. Oh, that's too new. I prefer not to get my evidence from stories of people who had no idea Western Hemisphere exists and the Earth held infinite water because the local well didn't run dry. Yeah, I mean, I think we have higher standards of evidence today. Like we realized that older standards of evidence weren't actually that good because they allowed for falsehoods to get through. So, uh, I know, Anne Marie. It's like we're both in West Michigan, I believe, and it's a nice day out. It's been a good day, except for the construction of my road. So, yeah, it's like 63 degrees where I'm at. Like, this is perfect weather. I should be outside, but I'm here streaming. I don't go outside much. I'm a vampire anyway. Summertime's awful. Drivers are rude, such attitudes, but when I show my peace, complaint, see something's odd. Okay. Yeah, great lyrics. Oh, oh my goodness. But yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. The Offspring Band. Oh man, I know their music. I'm like a lot of things with music. Like I know the songs, I know the lyrics, but I have no idea who the hell the artist is. I have to look it up. Oh, that's not bad. See, I know how to do a general conversion of Celsius to Fahrenheit because we're still over here in America. The great irony is we still use imperial stuff. Your arm looks good. Oh, yeah, I don't know. It's probably because I haven't gone outside yet. Uh, okay. All right. Let's here. Let me cue that up real quick, and then I will stop it right there. Watch it a little bit later, but yeah, I don't know. I my musical tastes are all over the place, and I'll hear a song that I like, and I don't care who the artist is, so I often don't remember. Is that 47.2? Yeah, that's about right. I would consider that starting to get decent. Oh, it's 50. Okay, it's 57 point. So that's a nice day. That's a nice day here in Michigan. This is why there's so many Germans that settled here. It's the same weather. It's literally the same weather as Germany. So, oh man, yeah. All right. Well, folks, I think I'm going to call it good. I had a nice little fight with a couple theists. I'm kind of spent. A couple days we'll do deconversion hangout where we'll have our modding be a little stricter and all that jazz. So, but yeah, it's so I got some new tunes. Yeah, okay, I'll listen to some new tunes. Thank you, Earl, as always. Um, but yeah, so I think I'm going to call it a night. It's been great. I've had a little bit of fun with somebody who tries to pass off really bad evidence as evidence, and and doesn't seem to know what good things are. So there's that. So thanks everybody for stopping by. I appreciate all the support. I think I only didn't quite make the goal for super chats, but we got a couple more days, so we'll see what happens. I saw a hat that I'm probably going to have to do, so we'll have to do that. So, but there's that. And just remember to hit the like button if you go out. Appreciate all of you. You guys are awesome. And so thank you once again for stopping by. Do all the things that YouTubers do to make the stream more noticed, and people are going to watch it later. I know people watch it later because they can't always be here at this time. So make sure you hit the like button so it gets noticed. So thank you very much. And as always, live your best life. You only get one go around and then it's over. So you want to take all your time, money, and opportunities and spend them on yourself, the people you love and care for, and to make this a better world. You'll be happier if you do. and don't waste them on the trappings of religion and faith, because that's a dead end. I speak from experience. And as always, folks, thanks for stopping by, and I will absolutely catch you next time.